Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Volts. I'm a personal finance teacher at St. Clair High School in St. Clair, Michigan, and I am here to share some tips on how to incorporate a fun project related to insurance in which the student can now become the teacher. So the project that I'm referencing, I am under curriculum, under the units tab. I'm in the insurance unit, and the project that I'm talking about is introducing insurance, you be the teacher. So this project I've used several times with great success in my classroom. And what it does is it allows students to become the teachers in teaching just some basic introductory concepts of insurance. I've always used this activity as an introduction. So as I kickstart my insurance unit, which has been traditionally kind of at the end of my school year, it's a nice way to take out some of maybe direct instruction or a different way of doing things and allowing students to now take on the role of being a teacher. So I use it at the very beginning, because most of the information that they're going to be presenting and introducing is going to be very basic and just getting started. So what the activity or the project does is you're going to group students based on however you group students, whether you assign them to groups or let them choose. But I've noticed that about 4 students per group is usually most successful. I should tell you a little bit about my classroom. I have mostly 12th grade students, and I have about 30 students per hour, and my hours are about 55 minutes in length. And like I've said, I've used this a couple times in introducing and kickstarting my insurance unit. So I traditionally have assigned them groups. That's just what works best for me, I feel, in this project. And I usually put about 4 per group because they can then divvy up the work, and then in presenting it adds some diversity to their group. So essentially what you do is you group students. You assign them a type of insurance, and there's a list of insurance types in this activity. If you have less groups, you could get rid of some of the more optional types of insurance like flood or possibly long-term care, and then make sure you're emphasizing more relevant and important insurance types for young adults. But you would use whatever makes most sense in your classroom. And then what students' assignment is they're going to create about a 10-minute presentation in teaching the class some basic information about that insurance type. I've noticed that 10 minutes goes by very quickly with students, so it's important that they try and keep it to 10 minutes. Otherwise, your presentations are running really long periods of time, but they first kind of panic about 10 minutes, but then realize that the 10 minutes goes by very quickly. The hard part of this activity is, how do students teach when they really don't know very much about insurance? Or another part as a teacher is, how do I know that they're going to be teaching the correct information and the key information as they're presenting? So what I've found successful, and this activity really lays out step by step what students should be doing to design their lessons. There's some questions in here to help them in structuring their lesson of like, make sure you're hitting on who needs this, what are my options, what does it cover, about how much is it, and then they should add a like story or some way to connect to that type of insurance, as well as some sort of interactive piece. How I've introduced it to students is I tell them, think about one of your favorite lessons. Think about a classroom that you really enjoy being in and a teacher who does a dynamic job, and now you take on that role. This isn't meant to be a formal presentation where you read off slides, but a way for you to take 10 minutes and teach us some of the important and basic information about that insurance type. So part 1 allows them to think and do some research on that insurance. So they have to become somewhat of a mini expert on just that particular insurance type, and then figure out how they want to teach it as a group. And then one of the interesting components of this project is they have to come up with some way to interact with their audience. And I've had lots of different things from Kahoots. Kahoots sometimes get overplayed, I feel like. One year I had to say no Kahoots whatsoever, just because every group was using a Kahoot and I wanted them to think outside the box a bit. But doing some sort of trivia, some way that you can engage the audience. Some students have found interactives related to insurance that they've presented within their teaching as well. And then students will plan almost like a lesson plan of how they're going to present the information, and if they're going to do a slideshow, who's going to be saying what, they kind of outline what their lesson is. And then you can have students score each other. I honestly have not done that. I've given them the grade and done the scoring, where my other students are maybe taking some notes or learning through their 10-minute presentations. coming back to my question of kind of the skeptical part of this as a teacher is, how do I know that they're going to present the correct information? What I've found is that it usually takes at least a good 2 class periods. And again, I have 55-minute class periods for students to plan this. And then my job is really the facilitator in this. And I move around to the groups and sit with them and make sure that they are targeting key concepts that I want to make sure are being said in the introductory lesson. So I usually give them maybe a little bit of time to get started, get thinking, get researching, get planning, and then I make sure I sit down with every group prior to the presentations on one of their work days and just have a list of, I almost have little like notes to myself of, are you hitting on this? Are you hitting on this? And just some of the key things I want to make sure that they're hitting on in that introductory lesson. And then depending on how much time you have for insurance, I typically, because I have a year-long course, so I have the luxury of spending a little bit more time on some concepts, and I'll wrap back around. So they'll give an introduction to what life insurance is in their 10 minutes. And then after we've done this project, I come back to some of those components and we dig just a little bit deeper. So I found that in the helpful nature of structuring what information is being said, just working a few minutes with each group has really helped that in getting them to make sure that they're saying the right things, that you want, that it's an effective introductory lesson. I found that students, you always have the student who maybe takes on a little bit more work than others in a group format. I think that's why assigning is so key. But I've had general success with this activity. Students really like it because now they get to take on the role and they get to teach us, and adding the interactive and the stories and adding videos and those types of things really make the lessons engaging, interesting, and the students have a lot of fun.